I'm trying to think of something very basic, not too technical.
Advice?
Advice for today, I think. Inspiration pathology career.
तो बोल तो स्टार्ट करते हैं.
Daily routine means you want me to talk about what people should follow?
I don't think that's needed. I
Yeah,
think we'll
because
get to that.
That's more you than me.
Huh. You can also ask me if you want. Like what is the idea?
What is your advice to people? Their
What do you do?
routine? Yeah, that's a good idea actually.
So
Second
you can-
question I can ask you.
And then health principles and habits that you think that then I have to counter and say that okay,
Yeah.
what do you think that ऐसे ये habits होना चाहिए? And then we can move on to diseases and disorders for cholesterol, sugar, blood pressure, cardiac.
Yeah. So then we can just start by saying that most commonly we are dealing with lifestyle disorders. So
I think that's the
most
bigger
common.
सबसे बड़ा issue वही है ना like.
Yeah. That's what. And you are also dealing with those kind of people the most, right? I mean, बाकी की diseases तो बहुत specific है.
It's a very small populace.
हाँ.
Like that entire bigger issues like cancer.
So all that is so cool for you.
मुझे तो आज की तारीख में लगता है कैंसर भी I don't want to say it but you know what I'm saying like I mean you can also like really control the mind body health parameters and then overcome those issues also.
So there are a lot of cancers which are linked to high body fat, like colorectal cancers, breast cancers. These two have a very high predisposition if the person is overweight. So these cancers can be prevented to an extent, but of course if there's a mutation and there's a genetic element involved, then you can't do much.
How much does a genetic cancer is I mean eventually mutation right but फिर भी mutation को हम लोग bend कर सकते हैं I would like to believe so that okay कर सकते हैं with proper food with the right mindset right attitude.
See, you can prevent the carcinogens to an extent, but once the mutation has taken place, obviously you can't do much. But to prevent the carcinogens, if you know that radiation exposure or eating foodstuffs which are packaged, if you are exposing yourself to too many chemicals, then you obviously know that these are carcinogenic, these are cancer causing in nature. So obviously you can stay away from those things. That is how you can modify your lifestyle. But once the mutation occurs, then you can't really do much. So then you have to go as per the cancer treatment.
No, I agree. But the way I look at it now, Neha, is that any disease has a certain threshold, like a tipping point or a flux point, right? And the minute it crosses the flux point, then lifestyle modifications and all those things where you try to detoxify your body, you keep your body as pure and as clean so that toxins don't affect it as much, whether it's coming through thoughts, whether it's coming through food, whether it's coming through chemicals, through radiation, all of that. एक पॉइंट तक होता है where you can control and bring it back. फिर एक पॉइंट के बाद में ना आपको कोलेस्ट्रॉल भी आप नहीं कर पाओगे, आपको फैटी लिवर भी आप नहीं कर पाओगे, ब्लड प्रेशर भी नहीं कर पाओगे, you like really abused it, right?
Correct.
Give you something like so cirrhosis right? एक पॉइंट तक आप कर सकते हो उसको भी, but फिर आपने अगर उसको abuse किया फिर
yeah, once it goes to the end stage, obviously you can't do much. So most disorders can be treated early when it's detected at an early stage by modifying lifestyle. In fact, diabetes also in the pre-diabetic range, you can reverse it to a very great extent. You can prevent its progression and you can also delay the onset of full-blown diabetes by modifying your lifestyle. But eventually, if your gene has it, the chances are very high that you're going to get it. So you need to follow up on your values to make sure you don't land up with full-blown diabetes and you are keeping it in check. Basically, that's the whole point.
So what are these tests like which help you understand that okay you're predisposed to this condition or that condition and how effective, how accurate is it? Suppose if it is diabetes.
Right. So when you're doing your 3 months average sugar, it is giving you a value of say 5.9, which falls into the pre-diabetic range. Now this value can very easily be controlled. You can prevent it from going above 6.5, which is your diabetic range, by modifying your lifestyle, controlling your carbohydrates.
You're talking about HbA1c.
Yeah, A1C. and you can even exercise regularly, and all these things will make sure your 5.9 is not reaching your 6.5 cutoff, and you can delay the onset by many years if you are religiously following all these guidelines. Yes, once you let loose, it's going to develop into full-blown diabetes, and once it goes into full-blown diabetes, you have no choice but to take medication. But if it is caught early in time, then you can very much prevent its progression.
तो ये टेस्ट का नाम क्या है?
Glycosylated hemoglobin,
Oh,
or
same.
HbA1c.
3 months average.
It's the 3 months average. It
Okay.
does not depend on what carbohydrates you've consumed in the last few days.
Hmm.
It purely depends on your last 3 months average.
How much is alcohol affected?
Oh, quite a bit, because alcohol is ultimately a lot of calories, which is carbohydrate.
Hmm.
So it is definitely going to raise your A1c.
And plus the effects on the liver.
On the liver is
Yeah.
of course there.
Okay. So we've got a bit, but we'll just start off organically. We'll say that okay. What's up, Neha?
Hi.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much for coming.
Can you tell our viewers, our listeners, what is it that you do and why do you do it?
Okay, so basically I'm a pathologist. I've done my MBBS and then my MD in pathology from Mumbai itself. And I'm a consultant pathologist and the director of a laboratory called Dr. Punjabi's Laboratory. We're a 37-year-old laboratory actually, and we're primarily based in Andheri. Of course, we offer services across the city, but Andheri has primarily been our area of focus. I basically started off my journey as a doctor, as an MBBS doctor, and during my residency, even though my main focus in life was to become a surgeon, I still developed a tendency to like pathology because my father is actually a pathologist, so I would visit his lab frequently, and I thought that yes, this is also a great option for me. I've always had a very keen interest in hematology, which is actually the only aspect of pathology which deals with blood workup. So that's been my key area of interest. I primarily manage the entire operations of the lab and also look after daily reporting. Pratik and I have known each other since many years. We've been friends for many years, and my journey with him actually started as a client. I came to him because I wanted to lose weight after my pregnancy, and he really helped me with that. And since then, we've been associated, and thank you for calling me.
I completely forgot that we worked
Yes.
together. Oh my god. Yes, yes.
That's
yes.
how we began our journey
Yeah.
together.
We've got one more testimony.
Yes.
देखा ये बिना बात मैं यही करता हूँ मैं क्लाइंट्स को बुलाता हूँ टेस्टिमोनियल निकाल लेता हूँ but on a serious note Neha, like thank you so much for coming here and thank you for like agreeing to share all these things because there are so many questions that people have regarding tests and आजकल tests इतने ज़्यादा comprehensive हो गए
Correct.
where people are not aware कि ये कराओ वो कराओ किसके लिए क्या कराओ and then always like the primary question that I get as a coach is that can you give me a list of blood work that I can do so that I know what to come to you for. I know something is not right in me.
Right.
Something's not working well. I'm feeling low on energy, my gut issues. Suddenly I'm feeling very drained at 4 p.m., 6 p.m. I get breathless. All these questions come to me and then they're like, can you give me a list of blood tests that I can do?
Right.
So I mean, obviously you helped me out with that entire list and I give the same list to them. But can you tell our listeners that, okay, what are these blood tests that one should do to just understand issues like cholesterol, blood pressure, fatty liver, and metabolic syndrome?
Correct.
Yeah.
So basically, most of the people today who are dealing with lifestyle disorders, my advice to them would be not to go in for too many extensive tests because it causes unnecessary confusion in your mind. You stick to basic tests that are done on a regular basis in any laboratory, which basically includes your complete body profile, which is your CBC, your blood sugar levels, your lipid profile, do a basic liver and a kidney workup, do your vitamin levels of B12 and D3, and do your thyroid levels. For older men, I would advise that you get a PSA, your prostate screening also done once. By and large,
Should I get it done?
so a person of this age doesn't really require to do a PSA testing.
Older बोला तो यार मुझे कल रात से लोग मतलब old only बुलाए जा रहे हैं
Above the age of 50, I would recommend a PSA screening to be done
Time and
regularly.
process,
Yes. But otherwise, I think these tests are more than enough to be able to deal with your regular conditions which are dealing with your lifestyle. If you have very specific symptoms which do not include these tests, then of course we would require more extensive testing to be done. But these tests by and large cover most of your routine lifestyle disorders.
So CBC, vitamin D, vitamin B, lipid profile, that's it for your cholesterol.
Yes.
thyroid,
kidney and liver function.
kidney, liver function. Okay.
Basic
And,
tests.
yeah, okay, perfect.
Yes.
And for women, like, is there something that they should
So
do, like prolactin, estrogen?
So honestly, if there are no symptoms, if your periods are regular, if you're not experiencing any other hormonal symptoms, you don't need to do any of these hormones. These tests are more than enough, but I would also advise non-pathology tests like a pap smear and a mammography to be done for women, especially after the age of 40. You must do a mammography at least once every 5 years. So that is very important.
Okay. Alright. So tell me that अगर इसमें कोई levels ऊपर नीचे आए
Right.
for cholesterol or for
Right.
fatty liver, like what should one look out for?
So basically, when we're looking at our lipid profile, there are various parameters that you will see in a lipid profile report. So one is you will see your cholesterol levels, then you will see your HDL levels, your LDL levels, and your triglyceride levels. These are the four most important parameters in any lipid
Which is
profile.
good cholesterol, bad
Yes.
cholesterol.
So total cholesterol basically includes all of these things. So that you must aim to bring your value less than 200. Ideally, your total cholesterol should be less than 200.
Okay.
HDL, which is the good cholesterol in the body, so obviously higher the value, the better it is. So if your value is anything more than 60, it is considered a good value, and if it's less than 40, it's considered to be on the lower side. Your triglycerides are basically mainly the fats which are coming from your foodstuffs. So this can be very easily controlled by lifestyle modification. So triglycerides, you must aim to keep it less than 150.
Okay.
Right? And LDL is your bad cholesterol. So obviously an LDL value, anything more than 100 is considered to be on the higher side. Less than 100, you're doing very well then in that case.
Okay.
So this is basically a basic overview of your lipid profile, which you must keep in mind.
तो ये ratio क्या होता है LDL to HDL? Like what is that for?
So the ratio basically just tells you how much of your cholesterol is good cholesterol and how much of it is bad cholesterol.
Ideally it should be somewhere in the 3 range, right?
3 range, yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's LDL to HDL.
Yes.
Okay. Alright. Oh nice. So that makes it easy. So overall these tests will help us understand that okay, if you have any metabolic disorders and how can you control it? Like what would you recommend? How can one control these issues?
So basically again, like I said, lipid profile is one thing. If you are doing it regularly and if you see your values are slightly on the higher side, obviously one can modify those values by modifying your lifestyle. So all of these things are basically coming from the fats in your diet. Any excess calories in your diet are eventually going to become fat. So overall, a diet modification is going to control your lipid profile to a very great extent. So you need to regulate your diet in such a way that the proteins in your diet are much more and the carbohydrate and the fats in your diet are on the lower side. I'm not saying they should be avoided, but the proportion of the foodstuffs has to be altered to make your lipid profile come within the normal range. If your lipids are far above the normal range, obviously you require medication for the same because you have an increased risk of developing heart disease because of the lipids. But other than that, I don't think lifestyle is something that you can't modify. You can definitely modify it and help treat the lipid disorders if it is borderline elevated.
Who can one go to for lifestyle modification?
Any fitness expert, any nutritionist can help you with the same.
What are you saying? So lovely, but I'm also saying, Neha, that people are asking me to when I get reports or when I get blood work, I get these random things that I've not even heard of. And there's no shame in admitting it, but ऐसे tests है जो मतलब obviously it's so unheard of.
Right.
I mean there is something that has become a little more common like a CRP, a homocysteine test, AP1. Apo मेरे से बोलने भी नहीं होता है. Apolipoprotein, yeah. What do these tests indicate?
So basically, nowadays a lot of people are asking for apolipoproteins, HSCRP, which is your high sensitivity CRP, and homocysteine levels. So apolipoproteins are basically used in conjunction with your routine lipid profile to detect very specific lipid disorders. So there are different types of apolipoproteins A, B, E, and there is also lipoprotein A. So all of these things are used to determine a lot of very specific hereditary lipid disorders as well. So it is used only if your routine lipid profile is abnormal or we are not able to control the lipid profile with routine medication or by lifestyle modification. Then actually the apolipoproteins are actually useful. Just doing them as a screening method is not really indicative of anything much. A basic lipid profile is more than sufficient.
Okay.
Similarly, even your HSCRP is a risk factor for heart disease, but it does not mean that if your HSCRP is elevated that you have heart disease at the moment. It's a predictor for heart disease in the future, but instead of doing a test like an HSCRP or a homocysteine, I would suggest there are very specific tests for heart disease that are non-pathology related, like your stress test, 2D echo, even your CT angiography. Nowadays, a lot of people
But it
are
takes too much
doing it.
time now. So.
Fair enough, but if these values are elevated, they give a false belief that, oh, I have a risk of heart disease. Yes, they do have an increased tendency, but it does not mean that you have heart disease at the moment, which is something people need to understand. That when you see a high HSCRP or a homocysteine, it doesn't mean that it's an alarming value and you need to treat your heart disease right now. It means you have an increased risk in future. That's about it. In fact, homocysteine is one parameter which is most commonly elevated because of B12 deficiency, which is almost seen in everybody. So if you correct your B12 and you see your homocysteine coming down, initially you might feel that, oh, my homocysteine is elevated and I have a risk of heart disease, but that's actually a false belief. So one needs to do these tests after understanding the interpretation of these tests. Instead of just going in and doing multiple profiles which include all these tests, they don't really give you any information for the moment. So
see, the thing is that now we are Indians.
Yes.
हमारा common belief यही है कि अगर हमको कुछ बोल रहे हैं एक्स्ट्रा कराने को तो ये हमको लूट रहे हैं, हमारे से ज़्यादा पैसे ऐंठने की कोशिश है. They're trying to extort money out of us. So yeah, I think this entire thing, like at least we have an idea that this is the number of tests that we should do, whether it's CBC, C2B20 and all these things. What about these genetic mutations? Like how you said, like my nani, my dadi, all my grandparents they had a bypass and all that thing, right? So for somebody who comes from that kind of a gene code, should I consider doing a homocysteine test? Is
So
it going to actually give me any kind of value?
So homocysteine, if it is elevated, and you even have a genetic mutation of this gene called MTHFR, for instance, even if you have it, okay, the treatment per se of the mutation is going to be the symptoms that you develop because of the increased homocysteine.
Okay.
Whether you have the mutation or not, if your homocysteine is elevated and you have a tendency to develop either heart disease or a stroke, which means basically you have an increased tendency of clot formation in the body. If that is your tendency, the treatment is going to be if you develop a complication because of the clot. So you're going to have to treat the stroke or the heart disease, or if you develop a clot in your legs, you're going to have to treat the thrombosis. Treating the mutation is not a possibility. So doing the test is not really giving you any additional value.
What deficiencies or what excess of would cause a clot?
Excess of meaning, I
Matlab, is it like something that I eat too much of? Could that cause a clot? Or
Not
is it like a
really.
deficiency of vitamin K? I don't know.
No, so these are not very common things. Okay,
Achha.
so there is a thrombophilia situation, which basically there are different proteins which are clotting, which are responsible for the clotting mechanism
Correct.
of the body. If those are deranged, only then the patient is predisposed to just developing clots. But otherwise, again, if I talk about clots which are formed because of abnormal lipids, those are different kinds of clots. Those are plaques, what we call plaques. So basically lipids get deposited in different parts of the body, and over time they cause occlusion of the vessels, they cause narrowing of the vessels, which results in the heart disease or stroke.
Correct.
So the logic is the same. If your lipid profile is deranged or your homocysteine is deranged, it is going to predispose to the formation of these plaques all over your body. Solution is the same thing. You are supposed to take lipid lowering medications. You have to treat the abnormal homocysteine, and the clot formation, the tendency will reduce. But if you have detected your abnormal lipids much later on in life, obviously the plaques have already started forming and they are present all throughout your body. So that is the reason it's very important to treat these disorders as early as possible in life, because plaque formation begins as early as your childhood. So that is the reason it's very important that even obesity to be controlled in childhood, because they do have a tendency to develop heart disease much later on in life.
Okay. So, and this plaque can also be controlled, not controlled, but can it be removed?
Yes, of course. So
Lifestyle.
Not with lifestyle, but then you have to lyse the clots. And also you have now, obviously stenting is a very common procedure, like what your angioplasty and these procedures do is basically you're getting rid of those plaques itself. So it's the same plaques, it's the same abnormal
But plaque formation सिर्फ heart में होता है कहीं कोई
No,
भी
plaque formation can happen anywhere in the body.
it just causes a stroke when it's in the heart.
It causes stroke when it's in the brain and it causes
Oh, yeah.
a cardiac arrest when it's in the heart.
Yeah.
So, but basically it's all the spectrum of the same disorder. If you have abnormal lipids, you have a tendency to develop these plaques all over the body.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if somebody is suffering, I get a lot of cases of cholesterol
Right,
combined with fatty liver or
Right.
cholesterol combined with diabetes.
right.
I'm getting a lot of comorbid issues
Right.
now
Right.
lately.
Right.
Why is that on a rise?
See, exactly, because most of us are leading very sedentary lifestyles. We do not have too much movement in our lifestyle at all. Our habits of eating out have increased a lot. Alcohol consumption has increased greatly. A lot of eating out has taken place. So, all these factors put together and reduced tendency to exercise. These things are a very big risk factor nowadays for us to develop metabolic syndromes.
So basically, we are getting greedy and lazy.
Yes, we are just getting lazy. That's actually the
Okay.
bottom line. We barely use any form of public transport. We're moving from one location to the other in a car. We're barely walking to places. Everything is coming home through Swiggy and Dunzo. We don't want to move from our place. We don't go to a regular store to buy even basic groceries anymore. So all of these things are definitely adding up for sure. And alcohol consumption has increased tremendously. Outside eating, junk food eating has increased quite a bit. So,
What's your take on supplementation, like overall supplementation? Like, because I still like today, people are so apprehensive of taking just basic vitamins, minerals, to sort their disorders. I mean, obviously vitamin D and vitamin D, we'll get to that.
Correct.
But apart from that, like a multivitamin, who should like? Don't you think everybody should be just consuming a multivitamin in today's day of like time?
See, honestly speaking, other than B12 and vitamin D, if you've tested the values and the values are on the lower side, you have to take supplements for that. Because no matter what you do, how much ever you increase it in your diet, the tendency for it to remain on the lower side is definitely there. You are going to require to supplement it. So B12 and D3 is a given that you must take. Other than this, if you are in your postmenopausal age group, you need to take calcium. Other than this, if you are an athlete, you need to supplement yourself with say magnesium. But other than this, I don't really see the need to take other supplements unless you have some specific deficiencies related to it. So if the patient has some gut disorders in which there is a malabsorption, because of which the patient is deficient in multiple vitamins, then of course you need to take multivitamins. But the role of taking a B1 or a B3 is not very high unless you have deficiencies associated with it. So it should be documented before you actually go on and take multivitamins. If you feel that in spite of doing your regular body workup, you are still not feeling fine, you're still not feeling fit, yes, you need to probably do more testing and identify if you have other deficiencies and then go on and take the supplements. But I don't believe in just popping supplements unless it is documented that you have a deficiency.
Okay. So, and nowadays, like I'm just going with what is happening today, most of the people are trying to be in a calorie deficit.
Yes.
Right? Because calorie deficit is what's
Right.
being propagated everywhere. In that attempt, they are eating very less nutrient dense food.
Correct.
Like probably just doing like one meal a day or 2 meals a day,
Right.
skipping carbs, not eating veggies, proteins a little bit here and there, and some fat, maybe some avocado and some protein. That's how they're trying to balance
Right.
their entire diet
Right.
and pulling on.
Right.
What would like most likely happen in such a case where they're trying to wing it
Right.
and eat
So
less?
I think these things might show them short-term results. They might feel happy that, oh, okay, fine, I lost X amount of weight in a duration of 20, 25, 30 days. But I don't think any of these diets are sustainable in the long run. Because A, you are leading to a lot of vitamin deficiencies in your body by doing all of these things. Yes, your blood workup might not show that you are deficient because your body has various compensatory mechanisms to show that your blood results are fine. But what you're doing to the body is you are harming it, and in the long run, you are not going to be able to sustain this sort of a diet. It will start showing changes in your hair, your skin, your muscles will definitely be a lot weaker. Your strength levels will definitely be a lot lower. You will not be able to concentrate in the long run. I don't think any of these calorie deficit diets are sustainable.
Extreme calorie.
Extreme calorie
Yeah.
deficit diets. Of course, you need to do it to lose weight, but it has to be done in a very, firstly, under supervision. Always, I recommend that it should be done under supervision, and you should not go overboard trying to just attain a specific target in a short period of time. In fact, take longer to do it, but don't go on any of these crash diets to be able to, just to show results. Because in the long run, you are harming your body. So that's my take on it.
Okay, lovely. What about autoimmunes? Because nowadays,
Yeah.
this term fibromyalgia
Right.
or rheumatoid arthritis,
Right.
I have axon.
Right.
What are the other autoimmunes? Hashimoto.
Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
So ये autoimmune क्या है, क्यों होता है?
So basically, autoimmune disorders is when the antibodies are attacking your normal body cells. So normally your antibodies will never attack normal cells of your body. They will only attack things that are foreign to it. That is the whole purpose of the antibody. But in autoimmune disorders, what happens is these same antibodies which are supposed to protect you, they actually start harming you because they are now destroying your normal body cells. Like for instance, in Hashimoto's thyroiditis, these same antibodies are destroying the cells of your thyroid. So as a result, the patients are presenting with hypothyroidism. So what is very important is that when patients are coming to a nutritionist, if they are presenting with a thyroid disorder, for instance, they might not show any results with your entire diet plan if they are not investigated for these disorders.
Correct.
Because they are eventually presenting with hypothyroidism, and in hypothyroidism, weight gain is their most common complaint.
Yeah.
Most people with thyroid disorders, when they come to a nutritionist, they're not even aware that they have a thyroid disorder.
True.
So Hashimoto's is one very important thing that has to be covered while investigating them. That if, in spite of taking medication, the patient is not coming under control, then one must think of an autoimmune disorder as well. And it's not just a basic regular hypothyroidism, it could be an autoimmune disorder. So it's basically, there are very specific antibodies that one has to test in these conditions. And if they come out positive, the patient is treated for those antibodies.
And these tests can be negative also, right? False negative, negative.
No, so mostly antibodies remain positive lifelong. It's
Okay.
just that after treatment, the symptoms do subside.
Okay.
So that is the advantage. And also regular medication for hypothyroidism also has to be taken in these patients. But the symptoms do subside and they are controlled very easily with medication.
Yeah, what I have found so far in my practice, like any autoimmune,
Right.
whether it's a Hashimoto's,
Right.
RA, fibromyalgia,
Right.
all of these autoimmunes work. I mean, they really one is able to control them very well.
Yes.
Either when they are following a low carb diet
Mm-hmm.
or a fasting protocol, intermittent fasting protocol.
Okay.
Because in that entire process, the more I studied about it, I was like that in that entire process, the body kind of elevates the rate of autophagy,
Okay.
right? So because of which your antibodies are kind of neutralized.
Mm.
No research, no scientific evidence. This is the only thing that I could put together, right? That because every time I've put somebody who has been on Hashimoto's or who has had fibromyalgia or who has had RA on a very time-specific, time-controlled diet, balanced diet, but time-controlled diet, so that you don't end up going into these states of excessive eating or whatever.
Right.
They've thrived. Pain has gone. They've lost weight. They've not had to. Their metabolic activities again come back to what should have been. Insulin sensitivity, HbA1c levels, all of that has been regularized. So, have you found anything like that in your practice?
So honestly, we don't follow up the diet plan that much with the patient, obviously, because the patients don't repeatedly come back to us, and we don't really take too much history about the patient's diet per se. But I do know for a fact that patients who have modified their diet have definitely shown improvement in cases of PCOD for sure, because insulin resistance has gone down in those patients for sure. And patients who have thyroid disorders, of course, it really helps that once with the medication, if they are put on a specific diet plan, it is definitely helping them lose weight. That has definitely happened. But yes, again, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, the main issue is the hypothyroidism that they are dealing with. right?
Mm.
It's only the only difference is they have the antibodies along with it, so we know a very specific cause for it.
Okay.
So yes, so the weight gain is something that they're coming to you for. So yeah, that definitely I'm sure helps them, whatever diet plan works for them.
Mm.
But yes, they definitely show a great improvement when they modify their diet, that is for sure.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when clients come to you and
Right.
they have a specific autoimmune,
Yeah.
an autoimmune is something that is it's a term that people are just learning about. I feel so. It's like a
It's
trendy
also a
word.
very generalized term. People
Yeah.
just use it very loosely for a lot of conditions, but
Exactly.
it's actually a very specific condition. There are very specific antibodies which have to be detected. Only then you call it an autoimmune disorder. Sorry, an autoimmune disorder. So that one must keep in mind.
No, I mean, I had to go through a series of like tests for 3.5 months because
Right.
my HLA-B27 was just coming negative.
Right.
But my ortho was hell bent. He's like, I'm pretty sure you have angstrom. I was like,
Right.
it's a test negative aa raha hai. He's like, false negative है, तू वापस करा. And after like 3 or 4 tests,
Right.
तब जाके positive आया.
So there are different methods of doing your HLA testing.
Okay.
HLA-B27, there are different methods of testing it. So it's possible that it came negative with one and positive with the other. That's
So is it the
possible.
lab?
No, it's not the laboratory, it's the methodology. So
Okay.
different labs use different methods. And yes, this is an overall problem which is seen with HLA. If the values are on the border,
Mm.
then the possibility is there that they will come positive with one and negative with the other. It's
Okay.
possible. But if you're correlating very strongly with the symptoms, I'm assuming the treatment protocol will anyways remain the same.
Hmm.
It's just that for a confirmed diagnosis, you need the HLA to come positive.
Okay. And for Hashimoto's, what test should
So Hashimoto's, there's a TPO antibody, thyroid peroxidase antibody, which is used, and that is very specific for Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So if the patient presents with that, along with sometimes their hormone levels at that point, their TSH at that point might be completely normal. Sometimes, most commonly, they present with a hypothyroidism, which is a raised TSH value. So when you have a high TSH value, it means you are hypothyroid.
Okay.
It's the reverse with TSH.
Okay.
Yes.
And in hyperthyroid, one loses weight. really fast.
Yes. So in hypothyroidism, there is weight gain, there is extreme lethargy, patients don't feel like doing anything, they have lack of concentration, they're just feeling cold all the time. That's a very clear-cut symptom of hypothyroidism. And hyperthyroid patients, they have increased irritability, they're just very anxious, sweating all the time, feeling extreme loss of weight, and they are mostly hyper. And they have their eyes protruding out. That's again a feature of hyperthyroidism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Eyes peeling out also.
Yeah, that's it. That happens in very long-standing cases,
Hmm.
but it does happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we move to the thing that I wanted to ask you? Okay. Now, so I have this. I have a very strong opinion about this.
Okay.
Intolerance tests,
Mm.
food intolerance tests, gut intolerance tests, allergy tests.
Yes.
People are throwing away money. I feel so.
Yes.
Because मैंने खुद कराया है ये test probably around 5-6 years back. Spent around 30,000 to send my blood work to Germany,
Mm.
get some analysis done, and they sent me a report of these things that I should eat, should not eat. I followed it. Not much of a change.
Right.
There are foods that are in red, should not eat. The foods that are in yellow, should eat less of. Food is in green, I should eat more of. What I observed was that I was eating some foods in green which are not working for me.
Right.
Especially like milk,
Right.
right? Casein
Right.
doesn't work for me. I have casein, stomach like bloated,
Mm.
gas, diarrhea, everything.
Mm.
Whereas when I stopped milk and I moved to plant milk,
Mm.
those issues have stopped.
It's disappeared.
But then it showed in green.
Right.
Chicken, for that matter, was in red.
Mm.
Sorry, even green again. Chicken was in green. Had it. Again issues, got issues. I stopped it, no issues. Chickpea was in red. But I don't have any
Never
issue
had
with
any
it.
issues with
Yeah.
it.
So I mean, I think that the body kind of develops and
Right.
changes its own tolerance, intolerances, allergies. But what's your take? Like, what do you think about it?
So, firstly, there are two things to it. There's food allergy and there's food intolerance. They are two very separate things. Food allergy is basically an IgE-mediated reaction, which mainly means that you are allergic to something, which is very common to allergies like a common cold or a hay fever. These are all IgE mediated reactions. What I mean to say is that when you consume foodstuffs that you are allergic to, you will develop symptoms immediately. One is you might break into a skin rash, your lips might start swelling up, your throat you might feel like you're choking, you might develop a very bad cough, or you might start sneezing instantly. These are all signs of allergies. Intolerance, on the other hand, is an IgG mediated reaction, which is the basic difference between allergy and intolerance. And symptoms of intolerance take very, very long to develop in any individual. You might consume something today and you might feel the intolerance to it even after many, many hours. The most common symptoms because of intolerance are bloating. You will feel sometimes you might be constipated, sometimes you might get a little bit of diarrhea, sometimes you might feel nausea. But all of these symptoms are not life-threatening, right? So allergies have to be identified first, and most people can pinpoint and tell you, yes, I am allergic to this particular foodstuff. Most commonly, people are allergic to shellfish. People are allergic to painkillers. That when they consume these substances, they immediately see a reaction. So when they consume shellfish, they'll realize that they're choking or their lips have started swelling up. So obviously, these foodstuffs which you are severely allergic to, you have to eliminate from your diet. You have absolutely no choice because they are life-threatening. But if you are developing, say after eating something, you're developing a little bit of a runny nose and nothing else is happening to you, there is no need to eliminate that substance from your diet because it is not life-threatening. Yes, you might notice that the allergy is worsening with time, in which case you might prefer to eliminate it or reduce the consumption of that food stuff. But there is no need to completely eliminate it, and there is no need to test for the entire panel because allergies have very obvious symptoms. Anyone who is severely allergic by adulthood will know that I am severely allergic to this substance. So it is pointless to undergo tests of thousands and thousands of rupees just to be able to tell you that yes, you are severely allergic to this. And in all probability, even if you are severely allergic to something, you might not show any symptoms because of it.
And this allergy is the prick test?
No, so skin prick test is one way of doing it, but now you can even do it in the blood. So skin prick tests are done by dermatologists who are skin specialists, in which they inject the allergen and they see the reaction on your skin to it.
They mark it.
Yes,
I've done some 84 different.
Yes. So that's the skin prick test. So that is very specific to allergens, but now it can be done in the blood as well.
And it's accurate?
Yes, it is quite accurate, but again, the test is accurate. I'm not doubting the test, but the interpretation of the test has to be done with great caution. If you are showing symptoms and it is correlating with your blood test, yes, it makes sense to eliminate it if you are allergic to it. But if you are not showing symptoms, why would you eliminate it from your diet?
So there is a possibility.
There is a possibility.
Okay, perfect. So
Yes.
in an allergic test where things might show red,
Yes.
that I should not consume
Yes.
because my blood indicates that I am allergic to it.
Right.
But in reality, maybe
Not
the allergy
showing
is not
symptoms.
manifesting to
It's
that
not
extent.
showing you any symptoms yet.
Yeah,
No,
or maybe
correct.
it is just showing something internally which my body is anyways coping up with and dealing with.
Correct.
Alright, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yes, so that is the thing about allergies. Now, intolerance is another separate panel altogether where you're doing this IgG based test. Again, you're doing multiple parameters. They're going to group it into mild, moderate, severe intolerances. Again, if you are majorly intolerant to any particular food stuff, is it really causing very severe symptoms in your case? Again, a nutritionist will be able to help you very well. You can eliminate those things from your diet and see if those symptoms are disappearing or reducing. If they are, then you could reduce the consumption of those foodstuffs.
Okay.
Again, you don't need to eliminate it because these are not life-threatening disorders. If the patient is very uncomfortable, if there's too much bloating, too much gas formation, yes, you eliminate it. Let's see if they feel better. If they do, great. That means the test was of some value in this particular patient. But just doing the entire panel and categorizing your foods based on those 3 colors doesn't really give you much information. It is practically impossible to eliminate so many things from your diet. It's impossible.
I think core about that, people just want to find a reason why they are not able to get fit.
I agree completely.
I feel so because like इतना investigate करते हैं to find this that and they're trying to pinpoint okay I'm eating this I'm allergic to this. I get it, you want to optimize your health and from a thriving perspective, yes, it's great. But people who are like not even, are in that bucket of clients or in that bucket of the population where the basic fundamentals are also not observed
Right.
of simple lifestyle practices.
Right.
Eating more vegetables, drinking more water, chewing slowly,
Yes.
walking as much as you can, exercising 3 to 4 times a week. ये basic चीजें भी नहीं करते,
Correct.
right? But then they want to investigate and find out, okay, what is wrong. So I think that is a bigger
See, I
challenge.
feel the mentality now has become that if things are available, you might as well go on and do it. But just doing blood tests and then categorizing your illness based on the interpretation of those blood tests is not really going to give you much value. You must start from the basics and then see if things are not working out for you. Then you go on and investigate further. But modify your lifestyle completely, change your diet completely, and then if you're unable to lose weight, then you go on and do these further tests. I still understand. But going in for these tests from the beginning actually gives you no additional information.
तो आप advise करते हो अपने like people who come in and
If they ask me to do an allergy panel, my first question to them is, are you allergic to anything in particular? And if they don't have an answer, I kind of tell them it's pointless to just do all these panels. People want to do environmental panels where it's including dust allergy. I mean, even if you are allergic to dust, what are you going to do about it?
in Bombay तो सब जगह
You
खुला हुआ
cannot do
है.
anything about it. How
Wear a
many air purifiers will you put up in different locations? How many of these things are you going to do? Where all are you going to wear a mask? Is it practically possible? See, I understand if someone comes and tells me, yes, I'm allergic to my pet's hair. I still get it, and we investigate specifically for that. And if that comes out positive, yes, it is a problem. But just doing an entire panel isn't giving you any information. Nothing. And
But-
again, like you said about your milk complaint, milk intolerance, lactose intolerance is a very common problem.
Yeah.
So again, you instead of assuming it's again a type of intolerance, but there are so many ways of treating. Like you said, you switch to plant-based milk, or you even put these lactase drops which you get, which just breaks down the lactose in your milk, or you use lactose-free milk also, which is now available so easily in the market. All these things help resolve these issues very easily.
Okay.
I don't think there is any need to stress about milk being such an issue. Yes, a lot of people have lactose intolerance, and it does make them very uncomfortable too. But there are great solutions to all these problems. Resorting to blood tests every time is not really going to give us much information.
And then the doctor is saying this.
Absolutely. Not a pathologist, yes.
So what are the tests that people usually don't do which they should do? I mean, we spoke about the tests that they should do,
Right.
and the tests that they do which are not required. But what are the tests that usually people overlook?
So honestly, the people who are very religious about their health, they're very sincere about their health, if you advise them a little bit also, they do tend to do these tests. I think it's the awareness which is the problem, where people don't want to address the issues that they actually have. It's the awareness, I feel, which is the issue over here.
People want to be delusional.
Yes, they're delusional that, okay, I'm fit. Again, like I was telling you the other day, I learned this term TOFI, where you're just thin on the outside, you feel that you're fit, but actually you're not fit. If your body fat percentage is still very high and you look thin on the outside, it doesn't indicate anything.
Correct.
It indicates you probably have a lot of fat around your internal organs, which is a very high risk factor for heart disease. So just being thin, looking fit doesn't mean anything. You have to investigate yourself. I'm not saying young people should over-investigate, but you should keep track of your health at a very baseline level. You should have baseline values. So in case you need to monitor them, you should at least be aware of your situation. I feel people who want to investigate, they thoroughly investigate, they over-investigate. So it's the ones who are just oblivious, that these things also exist. Those are the people who just don't do any investigations.
Okay. But what are these tests like you said initially, CBC and lipidology?
Right.
इसमें ऐसा कोई टेस्ट है जो लोग नहीं करते हैं, like they miss out on. They're like, we'll do a CBC, we'll do a lipid profile, which is the most common test that people ignore to do, which they should.
So I think liver function and kidney function. Now, of course, most labs have started including them in their regular profile. So it's not really given as an option to the patient. Patients just do it by default. But liver and kidney function is something that patients don't regularly ask for. So CBC, sugars, lipids, and nowadays vitamins are trending and thyroid tests are trending. So people just do it.
I like how you said
But
trending.
they are trending because I just think that labs have started promoting them so much that everybody just does these tests. Even though again repeatedly doing these tests has no meaning. But I feel liver and kidney function, people feel that doesn't have too much importance, but a lot of young people are showing abnormal liver function tests because of lifestyle issues. They are developing fatty liver at a very early age because of increased consumption of alcohol. So liver function is one thing I feel younger people should definitely focus on and definitely do. Kidney function also, at least a baseline creatinine value you should keep in mind so that we're not missing out on kidney disorders early in life also. It's very rare for people to have kidney disorders at a young age, but you should still establish a baseline value.
You are aware of the difference between creatinine and creatine?
Yeah, the breakdown of the two. One is
No, so one is
breakdown
supplement.
of-
One is a
yes,
supplement,
yes,
creatine, a
yes.
supplement, and one is creatinine.
Right.
Now, as a coach, people don't take creatine because they feel that their creatinine will go high.
Yeah.
Is there any correlation?
So basically, the issue is any form of protein, okay, in the body can have an increased load on your kidneys.
Correct.
That's an issue. But if it is taken under supervision, whether you take a regular whey protein also, if it is taken under supervision with adequate hydration, the key point is the hydration. If the hydration is intact, it will not impact your kidneys. But I have seen a lot of young people who overdose on proteins and have presented with kidney complaints.
Is it protein or is it steroids?
So the history given is protein, but it is possible they are consuming steroids. A lot of people do tend to hide this piece of information, but it's possible. But from our point of view, what our advice is, if you are taking any form of protein supplements, you need to hydrate and you need to make sure that you are taking it under supervision. You are not just making your dose double overnight by thinking that, oh, it will show me quick results. It is very harmful for your kidneys.
Okay.
Because it definitely, we have seen cases where the creatinine has suddenly spiked up because of taking increased supplements.
Okay.
Yes.
So, hydration, fiber, and the right quantity of protein.
Right quantity of protein. Depending on how much you are working out,
Yeah.
depending on that, the protein consumption has to be it has to be moderated according to that.
Correct.
And with an expert always is my suggestion.
Okay.
Because a lot of people consume proteins by themselves and they don't really know how much they should be consuming.
No, तो खाने में भी अगर आपने over consume कर लिया
That's also an
like
issue.
I see people eating like half a kg of chicken in a meal
Right.
or so much meat or so 20 eggs. I've also
Yes.
done that
Yes.
earlier in life where I've consumed 10 eggs at a go, 3
Right.
times a day, 30 eggs.
Right.
Just
See, if
because.
you're working out, it's great for your muscle recovery. There's no doubt about that. But your hydration has to match the amount of protein you're consuming. Otherwise, it's definitely going to impact your
Yeah,
kidneys.
I'm pretty sure. Like I think that's when I started developing a lot of skin conditions. Psoriasis went up,
Right.
backache
Right.
started shooting up, and I was like, why is it happening? I'm so fit. I'm eating so much protein,
Right.
and I'm working out 6 times a week, or probably sometimes even 8 times a week because I was doing the workout in the morning and evening
Yeah.
because I eat protein to dal rahe. So I think there was a lot of like lack of knowledge at that time.
Right.
But then obviously as I started understanding, now my protein intake has come down to probably 30% of what I was consuming back then. And I'm feeling lighter, I'm definitely stronger. Performance in the gym is better. So yeah, I think overall protein को बहुत ज़्यादा importance दिया गया.
Yes, I completely agree. And if it's done without an expert, it can be very dangerous. So please follow guidelines very strictly and don't just consume things. It's very harmful for your body. Please do not go down that path.
पहले तो
Is
Google
my
था,
suggestion.
अभी ChatGPT आ गया था, so because of that people like, and luckily like I don't know, people don't read it, but
Google has made life very difficult for us.
no, even ChatGPT now it's ChatGPT is even worse because ChatGPT extracts information from the
Yeah,
web, right?
of course, whatever is available.
It's a more refined search engine to be honest. But और ChatGPT के नीचे भी लिखा है ChatGPT can make mistakes
Can
too.
make mistakes, yes.
But people have now started giving me research like different things from ChatGPT and extract, and they're like, okay, now ChatGPT says that we can do this. Should we do this? So yeah, I think overall education, like structured education, उठा दे. Shidil. So overall, I think that ChatGPT or public domains like that are really good if one knows how to extract the right kind of information.
I agree.
Yeah.
So always, whenever you come up with any piece of information which you found on the internet, I would strongly recommend that you verify that piece of information from an expert who's actually studied these things rather than just assuming that what you've read is correct. Because what is posted on the internet has been posted by anybody and everybody. People who are qualified, unqualified, all pieces of information are available on the internet. So what to identify as correct and incorrect is also something you can ask an expert. If you want to follow a lot of medical information, you can always ask an expert that which are the legit websites that I should follow, which are posted by doctors. Yes, I will tell you on my own that you go to an e-medicine or you go to a WebMD, these are all posted by doctors. So you listen to that information, I completely agree with you. But if you just randomly look it up online and you come to me saying that, oh, I read up that, and every condition will show cancer as one of the side effects or one of the ultimate outcomes of the disorder, which is not true in every case, and it could be that one-off instance also which is posted online. That does not mean that it's going to happen to you. So please do not assume, because the internet has caused a lot of anxiety in a lot of patients, and it's unnecessarily burdening you with information. It's too much information. And when you haven't been trained to comprehend that information, it's better either you avoid it completely, you ask your doctor directly, or even if you are reading something, you verify that information from your doctor. That is my suggestion to every patient who comes with Google information.
Since we're on the topic of doctors, this is something that one doctor told me, like, and he wants to be a health coach. He's like, I want to learn, so can you tell me where all you learned, whatever you learned? And I was like, I'm assuming in MBBS when you were studying, how much of nutrition did you understand? Like, nutrition कितना बड़ा subject था?
Nutrition per se was not a subject.
Okay.
We are just taught components of food. We are taught where calories come from, what comes from where, which nutrient comes from where. That is what is covered in our topic.
Correct.
So it's not a subject per se. They will not teach you about the various ways of losing weight and nutrition management, and those kind of things are not covered. We just know that yes, अगर patient को thyroid issue है, yes, you need to reduce XYZ substances from your foodstuffs, cruciferous cabbage, cauliflower, you need Brussels sprouts, you eliminate it from the diet because it is a goitrogenic substance.
Correct.
So that is what is taught to us. What is important from a disease point of view, not what is important from a nutrition point of view. We are taught the breakdown of food, but from a disease perspective.
Okay.
But yes, ultimately everything comes under diseases only. Metabolic syndromes are also types of diseases only. So the same piece of information he can apply. But the techniques of weight loss, those kind of things are not covered in.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more from a clinical nutrition point of view.
Yeah, of course. We've learned all the diseases which are related to weight loss, weight gain, even the emotional disorders which are responsible for weight loss, weight gain.
Correct.
We've learned all of that. So that information will be very useful to this doctor.
Correct.
But the techniques is something we've not been taught, right?
Yeah.
Like how to manage it, we've not been taught. We know exactly what comes from where. But how do you apply it to somebody? That is not something we've been taught as a subject, at least not on patients.
No, I completely get it, and that's why I was thinking, because when this doctor was telling me, and I was having I had a long conversation on the call with him, and I was like, hey, eventually, what it's coming down to is, because I have studied this, right, and I actually reached out to him for my entire condition, like I was not feeling well. So I was like, hey, I think I can manage it with nutrition. He was like, no, you need to administer a dose of paracetamol and antibiotics and all of that. I was like, but should I go on it or should I do this? Then he only told me that, see, if you're going to come to me, I'm going to tell you what I do.
Right.
If the same thing, I'm going to come to you, I'm going to seek advice on what you know.
So we complement each other.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Exactly. And then he was like, hey, I have studied this. I know that, okay, you can do this, but not at that detail.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. And then, when the issue is that when any client takes one piece of information, if I say something, alright, I'm like, okay, you manage this disorder with so and so, then that person will not even consider going to a doctor.
Right.
In case if the condition is aggravating, you go to a doctor, see a specialist in that. There's no, like, the first chapter in my practice was that your scope of practice is from food to food to sort a disease, but if the disease is not being controlled, you have to recommend an expert, a doctor. Like always recommend a peer, whether it's a physical ailment, then a doctor, mental ailment, then a counselor, a psychiatrist, or a psychologist, whatever. So that's what I was taught, and right now I think the mindset is that people try to be on either side of the spectrum.
Yeah. And honestly, for us also, it's like when we write investigations or we write the treatment, when a clinician writes a treatment, we will mention diet modification in the line of treatment, for which we also recommend that you do it under an expert. So it's very important that we work together in this
Correct.
entire process, because we do what we do best and you will obviously do what you do best.
Correct.
So I think it's important for patients to understand that when we say diet modification, we mean it under an expert, because calorie counting, what is right for which disorder, is something that they are not just going to be able to figure out. It is something for which you need an expert, at least for a certain period of time till your disease comes under control. Because we've noticed a lot of diabetics who've been on a very strict diet under nutritionists per se, they have shown very good results, very, very good results. Of course, with taking medication. I'm not saying they've not taken medicines.
Ozempic?
No, Ozempic and
Metformin?
Metformin is of course given mainly to PCOD cases, but we have so many other medicines, insulin ले रहा है patient, तो oral hypoglycemics ले रहे हैं. Overall diet control के लिए also, a lot of people are not able to figure out calories कितने consume किए हैं या कितने करने चाहिए. They're not able to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's important that they see an expert, at least for some time, to get some guidelines.
I think the biggest misconception is that if you're in a calorie deficit, you will be hungry. Or if you're hungry, then you're in a calorie deficit,
Yes.
So people who are overweight or who are like even obese, if they'll try to stay hungry, not eat the right, or they'll not eat nutrient dense foods, eat calorie dense foods,
Yes.
stay in a calorie surplus and still be like, I'm not losing weight, I'm broken. Something is wrong with me.
Yeah.
And conversely, people who are trying to gain weight,
Yeah.
they're eating a lot of food which is nutrient dense and not calorie dense.
Correct.
And then they're like, yeah, I'm not gaining weight.
Yeah.
I have a very fast metabolism.
Yeah.
So,
And now the latest thing is my cortisol is deranged.
अच्छा आजकल cortisol चल रहा है.
Cortisol is deranged.
You're getting a lot of cortisol. So
Yeah.
is it important to do a cortisol test?
Also, see, cortisol is a hormone which is going to get affected in any stressful situation.
Correct.
In fact, I was reading an article the other day about how cortisol is getting affected with a lot of people because of doom scrolling,
Yeah.
which is basically just aimless scrolling on the internet. It's causing so much anxiety, so much fear in so many people that it's affecting their cortisol levels. But the treatment is not to treat the cortisol, the treatment is to treat your actual issue, which is to stay away from the internet and to do positive things only on the internet, because there's so much. It's having such a negative impact on the mind when people are not realizing that cortisol is getting affected, and cortisol being deranged is going to cause weight gain. There is no doubt about it. But just coming to the lab and saying I want to do my cortisol levels is not going to give you any information. If you've tried everything and then nothing works, then you do your cortisol, and okay, you have a medical disorder because of which your cortisol is deranged. That is justified. But just because the internet says that my cortisol is deranged, that's why it's causing weight gain, that has absolutely no meaning.
Cortisol is a good thing, right? I mean, ultimately,
it's normal for the body. It's a response of the
Exactly.
body to any stressful situation.
Yeah.
So but it consistently being elevated is an issue.
Correct.
Because that causes the weight gain. And that definitely causes weight gain. But the issue is not the cortisol. The issue is what you're doing to raise the cortisol, which is the problem.
So ultimately, like all these results, so cortisol, as much as I've studied, it kind of reduces the energy transfer from mitochondria to mitochondria. That's
Yeah.
metabolic. So cortisol slows that down. Insulin, if you're insulin sensitive, like
Yeah.
wo ho gaya, then that slows it down.
Yeah.
Any other tests that you would recommend, or any indicator that one could look out for that is slowing down the metabolism?
So metabolism per se, there's no real blood test that tells you
है ना?
anything more about metabolism.
Okay.
In fact, nowadays the indicators of health per se are not like what they used to be. Your BMI, these kind of things are also very outdated now. It's mainly, these machines that give you a proper body fat composition.
DEXA?
Not DEXA, like your routine monitors which tell you your entire body fat, your body percentages of your different parameters. Those are still considered far more sensitive than doing any of these blood tests, because these blood tests will show a lot of variation depending on your day-to-day life. And instead, if you want to do some basic things, just do an abdominal waist circumference of the patient. I think that is very tried and tested to tell you the status of your heart. Basically, I feel people focus a lot on lifestyle disorders because they are scared of their heart. That is one fear that every young person has, कि मेरा heart ठीक है ना, बाकी सब तो है manageable.
I think I have overall out of 100%, 80% of my lifestyle is towards the healthy side.
Right.
20% is definitely I know what I do, but still I have a phobia, or I have that entire insecurity. I won't call it phobia, but insecurity that heart is still, I don't know. Like sometimes you kind of push yourself at the gym, or you sleep less, and then suddenly next day heartbeat is like here and there, and you're monitoring your HRV and all that. So yes, people in the late 30s or early 40s are kind of getting scared of their heart.
Definitely.
COVID का कुछ असर है क्या? Vaccine का कुछ है?
See, there are studies which show that COVID per se has affected the heart of many people, but the study isn't enough to prove anything yet.
It wouldn't be enough, no, because it's happened recently and also right now.
There is no long-term study for it. Any long-term study needs at least 10 years, if not 20, to establish any documentation that yes, this particular thing is going to cause side effects in the long term. So we don't have enough data yet to say anything much about it.
But in your practice, have you seen that has there been a rise in heart cases?
So I've overall seen a rise in younger people having heart disease.
I mean, yeah, basically,
yes,
yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's because of COVID. There's not enough data for that. But lifestyle disorders have largely impacted a lot of young people. In fact, 40 is like the new 60 nowadays. There are so many young people who are presenting with heart disease because it's a lifestyle disorder. And people are not focusing on the right things in life. There's a lot of focus on the internet. There's a lot of focus on being sedentary all day long. There's no focus on exercise. There's no focus on diet. And 80% of your health comes from your diet. 20% probably comes from your exercise. 20-30%. So that importance. People think that I'm fit, I work out so much, but if your diet is unhealthy, yes, it is still a very big problem. So just looking fit is not enough. Actually being fit is what is important. So having a much healthier approach towards life in general is not something that a lot of young people are doing. I think the work-life balance is also very skewed. So people are not
mainly I think everybody's
time.
short on time.
Yeah, there's no time on enough to do these things. So that's the biggest issue.
FOMO करना इतना सारा.
Yeah, everyone wants to do everything. So obviously health takes a backseat. So but definite rise in cases of younger people presenting with heart disease for sure.
Tell me about DNA. Because again, like how my opinion was about FID or food intolerance test and all. Again, clients ask me, why don't you do a DNA test and tell me what should I consume, my athletic gene. There are so many companies that have started doing this. There's a very big company in US, 23andMe. They do they send you a swab, you send them the swab back, and then they'll send you a diet with multivitamins and supplements. How accurate? In your opinion?
So see, predictive analysis is the new thing. AI-based predictive analysis is the new thing. A lot of diseases in future are going to be prevented by a lot of these gene tests. And there's nothing wrong with doing the genetic testing. See, a lot of disorders, even cancers per se, today, there are already some established genes which are responsible for the cancer. So if you know you have a family history, say per se, of breast cancer, you do your BRCA gene from the beginning. You know from the beginning, yes, your BRCA is positive. So obviously you are going to take you're going to take much more precaution than any person whose BRCA is negative. You're going to do your mammograms more regularly, you're going to go to breast surgeon more regularly, follow-ups are going to be more regular. So chances are very high that you will catch the disease well in time, even though you might know what's going to happen to you if the gene is positive. But prevention is very important. It's giving you more years, it's giving you time to pick up the disease well in time.
Okay.
So that is the advantage of predictive analysis and prevention basically of all these diseases. It has a great advantage for sure. Back in the day, we didn't have access to genetic tests. So people, by the time they would present with the disease, it would be too late.
Okay.
In a lot of cases, because a lot of these cancers don't even present with symptoms to start with. See,
yeah, that's
cancer,
why you detect it in the third stage.
Breast cancer will present with a lump, but by the time sometimes it is presented with a lump, it has sometimes already spread. But if the patient knows that she's BRCA positive and she has consistently done her mammograms, you'll probably pick it up in stage 0 or stage 1 where it has not spread. So your chances of getting cured are much higher.
Correct.
So there's no harm in doing genetic tests. But all my only advice is that once these tests are available, doesn't mean we go out there and do everything under the sun, because there is no limit to how many tests one can do.
Yeah.
There is no limit. And with science advancing, there is obviously going to be an increased number of tests coming out in the market with each passing year. But that doesn't mean we go out there and do everything. See, if you have a family history, if you are dealing with a disorder that you're not able to diagnose, I still understand doing these DNA tests. But just doing them for disorders which are not life-threatening, what is the point? What additional information is it giving us? So my thing is, it should be limited to at least there should be some justification for doing the test, then it still makes sense.
So the way I look at it is that there is one set of people that does tests to avoid anything that is, I mean, to just identify any disease that they're going through because they're facing a symptom, right? And there is this one chota set of people जो जबरदस्ती टेस्ट कराते to either like to identify or probably to thrive or to live better. Now it's biohacking is a new term, right? I mean that's a trending term. So people want to like kind of biohack their way to longevity. Which is where these DNA tests come in play or the blood tests come in play. So is there a list of tests that you would probably want to say that okay, these DNA tests would be a good idea to do?
So DNA test per se, like I said, if you have a family history, if you want to go into testing these things further, there's no specific test that I would advise. If you want to do the test, then you might as well do the entire panel or what is available, because there is no specific indication for any of these tests. So my opinion is to not just jump into testing any which ways, but if you want to do, then you might as well do the entire spectrum, right? There's no, if you're doing it, you might as well do everything or you do.
Makes sense. Okay.
That my take on DNA testing is still this. I don't see any benefit yet.
Fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that science is also still scratching the surface of.
It's still a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
Honestly. So,
And the more we know, the more we
realize.
realize.
Every single year about which DNA tests are available in the market. Every single year you're going to have more and more tests coming out. So that doesn't mean that we're going to go in and do every single test, because there is no end to this. On a serious note.
There is one thing I feel is like an epidemic. I wouldn't call it a pandemic, an epidemic, that I think we are, as an Indian population, we are very deficient in vitamin B and vitamin D.
Yeah.
Like that is something that I see almost 80-85% of my clientele with a deficiency in vitamin B and vitamin D. Why?
Right. So B12 per se, Indians are deficient. Most Indians are vegetarian. So vegetarian diet is deficient in B12. So that is one of the primary reasons why B12 is deficient. Secondly, the values are so low that in spite of taking supplements, you will see that the values take very, very, very long to come up. So it is not something that you take supplements every day and in 3 months you'll see a rapid rise in the levels. Most people require injections because their values are so low. If you see that in spite of all these attempts, the B12 is not coming up, then you need to focus on disorders of the gut.
Okay.
Absorption issues of the gut, which is basically your parietal cell and your intrinsic factor antibodies. If they have antibodies in the gut which prevent the absorption of B12, or if they have some malabsorption syndromes, or if they have worms, all of these things also are responsible for B12 deficiency. So you start with supplements, you wait for some time, see if the values are going up. If the values are just not increasing, then you think of these other causes for B12 deficiency, and something or the other might come positive in these patients.
Okay.
But B12 by and large takes very long, and most Indians are deficient in B12.
Okay.
And vitamin D, the biggest issue is the melanin under the skin, which is basically the pigment responsible for color. In Indians, of course, brown-skinned individuals have more melanin under the skin, and that interferes with vitamin D absorption.
Okay.
So even though you might be in the sun, your vitamin D might not be actually getting absorbed. So one biggest issue about our lives is our lives are very indoor. There is limited sun exposure. We don't catch the morning sun, which is the other issue. And the third thing is the melanin. So even in vitamin D, ideally speaking, you need to take supplements. If not, you need to resort to injections. One of the two things will definitely work out. The only issue with the injections is that they are oil-based injections, so they're quite painful. Vitamin D, yeah, they're intramuscular, but they're very painful vitamin D injections. So because of they're fat-based.
Okay, yeah.
It's a fat-soluble vitamin, right? So they're fat-based. So the compliance with vitamin D injections is not very good. But your 60,000 units of your vitamin D generally helps in rising the vitamin D levels adequately.
But you see a lot of cases where vitamin D.
Vitamin D again, the sources of vitamin D are meat, eggs, milk. So a lot of Indians do not eat most of these foodstuffs, so they do require supplements. So that's the biggest issue over here.
And what I have observed is that because of the deficiency of vitamin D, it gives rise to all these metabolic disorders, right?
Yeah,
Eventually,
so bone pains, you'll see a lot of bone pains. See, your vitamin D levels being on the lower side, basically it's the calcium metabolism which gets affected in this. Your calcium values might still be within normal range, but their bones in the long run will get affected. So that is what we don't want. That in the long run, their bones become weak. Kids will present with rickets, adults present with osteomalacia. Basically, it's weakening of the bones, which you want to prevent in future. So that is the reason one needs to attack and treat vitamin D deficiency.
Let us speak about collagen.
What about collagen?
Just ask. Like test होता है क्या collagen? Because people take see
I'll ask. You teach me because collagen को test नहीं है.
टेस्ट नहीं है but लोग collagen ले रहे हैं, right? हाँ. It's useless. Like your body produces it, right? I mean, it's something that your body, it's a protein.
It's a natural tightening.
Yeah, so उसको ज़्यादा लेने से कुछ होने नहीं वाला है. You're getting it, like I.
The dermats को दे रहे हैं.
हाँ.
They are giving. They're not recording this.
We don't use it. We don't use it. So but like
They are giving it.
It is something that is created for nothing.
See, I'll tell you what has happened with collagen. It's become like a bit of a marketing situation where dermats have started giving it, and it has been fed into the minds of people that it tightens your skin and it will improve the quality of your skin and radiant होगा ये होगा वो होगा तो लोग पी इसलिए वो हो गया है वो बैठ गया है सबके दिमाग में. Now you cannot change that mindset. See, most things which start trending is because of the mindset which is created around it, and you can't question these things because then they are actually prescribed by a lot of these dermats now. If you question it, you're literally going against that, right? So it becomes an issue.
So doctors को कोई product use करके doctors को अपने confidence में लेके ऐसा करना चाहिए basically.
So basically, if you have a product, then
Yeah, समझ गया. नहीं क्योंकि हम लोग supplement मैं supplement सोच रहा हूँ. मैं sleep के लिए supplement
show me the video.
अरे हाँ यार अब नहीं है. मैं supplement सोच रहा हूँ और supplement का ना मुझे like I'm thinking so improving sleep because sleep is something that I struggle with a lot. I sleep for 4 hours in a day. So I want to improve the quality of my sleep and try to sleep a little more. Right? So I'm playing around with different ingredients, a mix of magnesium, chamomile, lavender, valerian root, what else was there? Ashwagandha, 5-6 different elements to give a deeper and a better sleep, better quality of sleep.
See, lavender oil, ashwagandha, all these are known. They have known properties where they cause sleepiness in people. So
Right.
these are all established things. But again, to get a physician to prescribe all this is not easy.
Right?
It's not easy. You have to go and hard sell it to them. Otherwise, you'll not.
तो एक MR रख के उनको.
MR रखना ही पड़ेगा. Option नहीं है. You have to keep an MR.
Okay.
And they have to go outside and wait, wait and make sure that you give and you explain. You have to train your MR thoroughly to be able to explain the benefits of it. And you also target physicians at a very smaller level, like the BHMS, BAMS, those guys. They have a higher rate of giving these meds because what happens is convincing patients also becomes a task. The ones who go to MDs are generally the educated ones. They will question everything you give them. They will go back home and check everything you give them. So they will do the research. The physician will also do his bit of research. But at a lower level, the patients don't really question the doctors too much. So the compliance is much better. So to launch things, you go to MBBS doctors, you go to BHMS, BAMS, homeopaths. They might still use it because homeopaths are anyways using all herbal products.
Correct.
उनके साथ तो तेरा बहुत ही अच्छा वो हो जाएगा.
No, makes sense.
That is a very important thing because clinicians are telling you, एक तो they already give so many medicines. उसके ऊपर then
Supplement देंगे वो.
हाँ. So it becomes very difficult to convince them. And they already have a very set pattern of functioning. तो उसको break करना बहुत difficult होता है.
Correct.
वो सालों से वही.
नहीं वहाँ पे I'm sure like उनको रेस्टिल वाले कितना कमीशन दे रहे हैं तो वो लोग एक ही देंगे, right? So it makes sense to go to BMS or
Restil is the company. You go to medical.
Exactly. So but I want to get something as an alternate to Restil, where I mean obviously it's not for people who are actually on a higher dose of Restil and have some kind of other issues like insomnia and all, but at least like people who are on 0.5 mg.
Correct.
Try this. That is the entire intent of it because I know that मेरा situation तो बहुत खराब है, बहुत कम सो रहा हूँ, and I like it's been since almost like 4-5 years now, so I want to improve that. So अगर वो हो गया तो nothing like it, but that's what I'm trying. Okay, so what else do you want to cover? I'll ask you about the case and advice for
Let me
this.
think of one case first, one basic case. And I'll
Sorry, just hold on a second.
Family's break.
हाँ, बिंदास.
Think of what else we can cover.
ऐसा कोई केस हुआ है क्या इधर?
फिर ऐसे तो बहुत cases हुए हैं where it has helped the patient, but one which would be little we can discuss how we picked up very high triglycerides in my patient. So basically, when we collected the sample of the patient, I'll just tell you this case would work first. Tell me if it works. So we collected the sample of the patient, and as soon as you collect it, you transfer it into this yellow tube. Okay, that's the normal, the gel tube which we collected. And the minute we kept the tube and we left it standing, the color of the serum became white.
Okay.
Completely white. Just normally like a translucent with a slight yellowish tinge to it. It was white in color. So just looking at the sample, we could tell that this triglycerides of this patient are definitely more than 1,000.
Oh.
Okay, because only then it will come that high. And when he ran it, was 3,000. So obviously this patient needed immediate medication. 3,000 triglyceride is too high. So a very simple thing helped us to pick up, like at that time only we could tell the patient. Of course the patient came back, doubted the result.
Obviously वो तो होगा ही.
1,000 कैसे आ सकता है?
हाँ.
कोई तकलीफ नहीं है, that sort of a thing. But we actually had to show the color of the serum to the patient and be like, this is normal, this is yours. And I'm telling you it's 3,000.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was a lot of fights happened with that patient, but eventually she was convinced. When we showed her the color of the serum, so these are very basic things that we learn in laboratories which help us to fight our case also. But they have been proving to the patient even, so obviously they start doubting your machine, they start doubting your setup, the doctor, they start doubting everything. But these are very basic things that we just show the patient that see this is white, it's because of your triglyceride, and hence prove that your result is 3,000.
So वो ये भी होता होगा ना, like patients are doubting your
Every
analysis.
time it always happens. See, because of the
Because
fact
people
that
don't
there
accept के.
exactly. So the minute you go into that denial phase that yes, nothing is wrong with me, I don't have any health issues, then obviously you start doubting the report. And we have a policy of rechecking on 2 instruments. We have a policy of even mentioning it on the report that the result has been rechecked. But yes, there are some parameters which if they are borderline high, we don't need to recheck. Because we are confident of our results, we are rechecking it and we are writing it on the report only for the patient's satisfaction. It's not like we have any doubt on the report ourselves. Because we trust our equipment, we are trusting our quality control processes, right? But to convince patients, because right now the whole situation where they cross-check it from another laboratory or they will go and say something to another doctor, then the doctor will call you back. So obviously we have to keep all these things in mind, so to safeguard ourselves and also convince the patient has to come back also. So we have to mention these things on the report. So yeah.
Also one thing, tell me, there are so many labs.
Right.
इतने सारे labs खुल गए and everybody's playing the price game,
Right.
this game. And yesterday I got a report from some Shraddha labs on a piece of paper like a prescription, like a छोटा वो हम लोग बचपन में जाते थे ना डॉक्टर के पास, वैसे छोटा एक hand written इतना A5 size का पेपर पे हाथ से लिखा है उसने value. So is there a governing body that one can look for कि जिसका stamp रहे आपके test पे?
See, it's very simple. There are labs that are run by MD pathologists, there are labs that are run by DMLTs, which are the technicians of the city. So it all depends on the lab that you pick. If you are quality conscious, you should ideally go to a lab which is run by an MD pathologist because there is a certain level of accuracy that has been maintained in the lab. But I'm not doubting DMLT labs. There are DMLT labs also that are doing a very good job. See, it all depends on your faith and the kind of lab you are dealing with. If your physician believes that the reports are adequate, they are accurate, they are correlating with your symptoms, there's nothing wrong with it.
नहीं but ऐसा कोई ISI का थप्पा है ऐसा कुछ
There
है
are no
जो
such things. All these labs are allowed to run as labs in the city.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow if I want, I can just invest in any piece of equipment and I can get.
Yes. You can get a pathologist to run your lab. Yeah, that's what. So most we're not using any of this. Not being able to survive.
Right?
No,
मसाला है यार.
You can't use Shraddha labs not to run.
Shraddha Lab is big or what?
No, then so many insurance companies go to them. My HDFC term insurance Shraddha Labs had come home. She collected only, instead of collecting 3 tubes, she collected only 1 tube and she left it. And I said, but बाकी का sample कौन लेगा? मैं pathologist हूँ. Then she realized गड़बड़. That's when all this happened.
But ये है Shraddha Labs मतलब है ये scam है ना?
Shraddha ही था वो, I think, but there are so many such labs. It's not scam or no, that I'm not commenting on all that because we don't know enough about these people. Masala is not happening on this.
थोड़ा तो यार.
No masala. We don't name anything.
Whatever. No, we use that. So, the memorable case का बोलो ना, she just said right now, we use that exactly.
I'll say it again.
No, why? You said it now.
Did I? I just asked you if it would work.
And it works.
Okay.
Like, we'll just patch it, no? Like this entire thing. Like, a memorable case, like, is there any memorable case that you've, like, encountered where you had
Ask
result?
again and say it again.
मैं वही पूछ रहा हूँ तो मैं वही मत ना वो तो मुझको मिल गया मैं तो सिर्फ पूछ रहा हूँ so is there a memorable case that in your entire practice where you got an inference or you got some kind of result and you had to prove it to a client because the client was in denial?
Right. So we did have one such case where a patient presented to us and immediately after blood collection when we left the blood standing in the tube, we noticed that the color of the serum, which is the upper part of the blood after the blood separates, was white, completely white, like milk in this particular patient. So obviously we looked at it and we were very sure that the triglycerides of this patient are very high. So we tested it in the lab and the value came to 3000. So we.
Now what is the normal value?
So normally the value should be less than 150
Correct.
in a normal patient, but this patient's value was 3000. So obviously we checked the sample and we gave the result to the patient, but the patient refused to accept it that I've never had a lipid disorder, I've never had high triglycerides, nobody in my family has it, it's not possible. So then we actually had to show the sample to the patient and tell her that see this is the normal color, it's not, it's clear, completely clear your blood, a normal patient's blood and your blood is white. So that is the reason your triglycerides are so high. And that's when she and her doctor were actually convinced that yes, the triglycerides are very high in this patient. So it's a very simple thing. These are very small things that we have to do sometimes, to kind of tell the patient that yes, we have provided you with accurate results. Because obviously, and from a patient's perspective, we understand that there are a lot of labs, there are a lot of options. So obviously, everybody has the freedom to go and recheck values.
Correct.
So these are small ways in which we manage to talk to our patients and convince them that yes, see, we are giving you accurate results. So this was one such case that happened recently only.
Wow, lovely. मतलब लोग आते हैं और फिर डाउट करते हैं.
See,
But
it's
yeah,
normal human tendency. I mean, going as a patient, you obviously till you're not told once or twice that you have a problem, you are not going to believe it, right? So it's important.
I face it almost every day. Like when I prescribe a diet to somebody, they will send me articles. Why am I eating this? Why am I eating this? So obviously, one should question.
Yes.
100%, and they absolutely have the right
and
to.
We are always there to explain reports to patients.
Yeah.
Like my dad and I are both always available to explain the report to the patient. So whenever there is anything abnormal, in fact, we have a common tendency to talk to the patient very regularly when things are very abnormal. We have a normal protocol that we call patients and inform them that आपका malaria positive है या dengue या chikungunya positive है आपकी case में. So it's common protocol in the lab to talk to the patient so that the patient doesn't receive the report and is alarmed by it. So we follow these simple basic practices.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. So, one final note. What is the advice that you would give to our listeners around pathology, around testing?
So I would advise that you do your blood tests regularly so that you establish a baseline value and you just monitor yourself. But in addition to blood tests, your blood test might be completely normal, but that does not mean that you are fit. You need to maintain a good lifestyle, you need to exercise well, you need to hydrate yourself adequately, your diet needs to be in check, preferably by an expert, and you need to do all of these things in addition to maintaining a good work-life balance, and only then will you feel that your health is actually on the right track. Otherwise, things are definitely going to go haywire. And it's not about any one particular thing, it's this holistic approach towards your health, which is actually the only thing that is sustainable in the long run. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Lovely. You couldn't put it better. But yeah, I think मैं क्या बोल रहा था भूल गया. मैंने अभी arthritis पढ़ा. और
We didn't speak about gout, did we?
No,
Uric
we didn't.
acid.
Gout
We
के
didn't
बारे में
speak
बात
about
नहीं
uric
किया.
acid.
हाँ. What can I ask you about gout and uric acid?
So, there's not much. It's like if the uric acid is elevated, what foods do they avoid and things like that. So, gout is a very common problem with
Mm.
uric acid issue. So,
Mm.
if you want, I can just give like an overview of what gout is.
Go for it.
Yeah, so gout basically is a disorder which is a problem with purines. Okay, purines are certain foodstuffs which are there in your regular diet. Stuff which is rich in purine is basically your anchovies, a lot of seafood, tuna. These things are very rich in purines. So whenever there's a disorder with purine metabolism, your uric acid levels tend to go up. And when your uric acid levels are elevated, this uric acid goes and gets deposited in your joints. So as a result of that, the joints become swollen, inflamed, tender, and patients present with gouty arthritis, what we call gouty arthritis. So the big toe is the most commonly affected in gout.
Okay.
So all of these patients, they need to be given specific medication to eliminate this uric acid from their body. Otherwise, they develop very painful deformities in their joints. So the nutritionist part comes in when they have to prescribe a diet which is low in purines,
Okay.
and only then will the uric acid levels also come down, because then the food plays a very important role in the diet
Okay.
of these patients. So the uric acid levels have to come under control in these patients. That's the only way the joint issues go down, along with medication.
Yeah, medication is so important.
So
I'm sure,
important,
yeah.
yes, yes. So
Okay.
that's gout basically.
Perfect.
That's all that is.
Yeah. So I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
All right. Great. So, what do you do for your health and fitness? Yeah.
I come to Fit Crew.
You've come. Your sister has come. You've got so many more people. But thank you so
Yes.
much. Thank you so much for
I
coming.
think all of my friends, we are like, we should form a Sneha group. We are all like Sneha fans.
Is Menka also from your gang?
Menika also?
Yeah.
Oh, Menika also comes to you?
Not yet. Like she reached out to me recently.
Menika? Who is it?
Reva ने number दिया मुझे. I was
Menika
like
friendly.
she's a friend of
Ah.
ours and also okay.
Yeah, Menika is also, unless it's some other Menika, but
एक ही
she's,
एक ही तो.
she's like,
शादी है उसकी. शादी हुई है अभी उसकी 2-3 साल पहले I guess.
नहीं, ये दूसरी Menika।
शादी नहीं हुई?
10 साल पहले की शादी।
तो वही होगी फिर बच्चा हुआ है उसका.
बच्चा हुआ।
हाँ बच्चा हुआ.
I think most of these girls have come to you after delivery. All of them.
Everybody
Sneha
comes.
के पास तो literally the whole gang is with Sneha.
Everybody comes to me after delivery.
No, I'm back on your program from Jan, by the way.
Yeah.
Yesterday only I messaged Sneha. She said, I'm telling Cecilia today. Please tell her. I think so I was also taking these meds for like a lot of issues. I also developed hypertension very early in life and all of that nonsense. My dad is hypertensive since he was 35. So low dose heavy. मतलब borderline है but medication भी लेना पड़ता है. So that's what. So थोड़ा anxiety ये support को
थोड़ा anxiety थोड़ा कहाँ होता है? Anxiety तो सब में से ज़्यादा ही होता है.
No, so basically everything adds up now. So my nutrition was out of whack. So I gained 1-2 kilos. And plus, anyways, I wanted to drop 4-5 kgs. I wanted to be on the leaner side from the beginning.
Are
So
you
my
working
family
out?
has. I am working out.
Where are you working out?
My trainer comes home.
Go to a gym.
No, so there's a gym in my building, which has just started. So we're going to start using the gym again. It's very good. And it's a new building and everything. So gym is good only. The thing is, I have a history of breast cancer, so I want to be on the leaner side from my mother. So already family में इतना first relative history है, so I do have the chances and all that. So I want to be on the leaner side from the beginning only. Plus, like all these
तो
joint
मीरा को भी
issues.
बोलना.
Mira's already, she was with you guys.
Yeah. I'm just saying that मीरा को just.
She's lost so much weight now.
Yeah.
She's lost what, 13,
No,
14 kgs, 15 kgs,
15
totally 15 हो गया होगा उसका. So that's good weight. And she's working on heavy deliveries. Pilates भी करती है, बहुत कुछ करती है.
उसका
उसका
अभी
भी-
recently मैंने supplement भी दिए थे उसको.
उसका kitchen अभी बन रहा है, इसलिए वो बहुत, she's very tied up, but I think from Jan again she'll come back.
Yeah.
Because
No,
wants
she
to
doesn't
drop-
need to come back. I think she's sorted now. Like
she
she just
wants
needs to
to
maintain.
drop another 5-7 kilos.
I'm thinking of actually starting a maintenance program, like something which like old clients can resubscribe to, which is like a little lighter, where they are just put on one group and the workouts and one diet is given.
One
You don't need a diet again and again.
Repeated
No?
diet, yeah.
Like,
I
you
agree.
want the
My
accountability.
thing is- My thing is not the diet. My thing is someone sitting on my
For,
head.
yeah,
Only that
I
is
know,
everything.
I know. So वो
I just need Sneha to ask me 6 times a day मैंने क्या खाया है. That is the only thing that matters to me. Otherwise, it's very hard for me to follow any plan.
that is what is. So when I was actually starting Bitcoin, I went online, I did surveys, and I asked so many people that what is the reason that you think that you're not able to follow up with a plan? Because plan तो सभी जगह मिल जाता है.
Correct.
And most of the people, like 70 to 80% of them said that it's because nobody cares.
Correct.
Yeah. So like, let's build a
Exactly
team of
my
people who
choice.
care, who are actually
Yes.
checking on you or making sure that you're doing
Yes.
everything, and then we'll build a company around it.
See, it's a psychological thing. Once you pay money and once someone is sitting on your head, then you want to do it for these reasons.
Correct. Yeah.
And then that just automatically, and then it works in your favor. So then obviously you see results, and then you're very motivated by the whole process. So then you believe in the process, right?
Absolutely.
So
That's how all these
that's
other
why
places
I've
also.
come
Amran
to-
also work like that. Only.
Yeah, that's why I've also come to you so many times because of this. I think this is the 4th time I'm like coming back. 4th so easily. During my pregnancy, I came twice. For that
Yeah.
entire year, I think COVID year, I was with you guys. COVID, so there was no choice for me other than doing steps at home.
But
And
COVID, I was surprised. Like so many people lost so much weight. Yeah.
I lost my entire pregnancy weight in COVID. I
Yeah,
came
it's
back
so
to
easy.
Came back to my
Alcohol wasn't
Zero
available. So easy.
socializing, no food, outside food. In fact, cooking food only was a task. खुद ही बनाओ, खुद ही खाओ.
But you see the irony of this entire situation here, Neha. Like a life-threatening disease or a pandemic like that got people healthy. That's how I look at it. Because you were forced to not do anything unhealthy.
Agreed.
You got so healthy, you lost weight, like not you, but in general, the entire
I agree
population.
completely.
Alcohol consumption was low, people were living a better lifestyle, they were walking, they were sleeping stressless, like they were like living
Yeah.
properly, and they saw the benefits of how they can actually
Yeah.
improve their quality of life.
How
And-
you lower your everyday expectations and how you live a very basic life and how much healthier that is what people realized.
Expectation ही तो मार देता है सब चीजों को.
Exactly, no? You have to be present everywhere, you have to do everything, and lifestyle is going to take a hit, obviously.
Perfect. So thank you, Dr. Neha Panjabi. Thank you for coming here and putting light on the tests and what tests are good, what tests are needed, not needed, and giving awareness to all the viewers and listeners on what one should look out for
Yes.
spotting any metabolic diseases or disorders, and how they can be more mindful about their lifestyle.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
thinking of me. For your
How was
show.
it?
Good, I mean,
है
chill
ना?
only.
ऐसे ही रहता है यार. अभी
When
कोई
everything,
बात
like I
नहीं.
said, when